start this session. So with that, everyone, good evening. Welcome to this session this evening, finishing unfinished business. So what kind of business did you not finish in 2020?
Many.
Website, Dr. Khairul Anwar, website.
Yeah, working with a colleague, a friend. Yeah.
I've done mine.
Thank you for reminding.
I've done mine.
That's good. Alhamdulillah. Now, this topic, I decided to do it this week because as what I texted to, I think all of you was over the last 7 days, this topic on psychosocial development came up because on last Friday, we were talking about children's development. Yes, welcome. Edna, good to see that you're here. And just last Tuesday, we also discussing on children's development. So the psychosocial stages from Erikson, this topic came up. Now, we were talking in the context of how can we play and teach our children at the same time as they are growing up. We are focused on developing the psychosocial aspect of self. Now, and I would say thank you to Danielle because you asked the question, what if when we went through our childhood and our psychosocial stages development was not fully complete? And I mentioned briefly, because it was not part of the discussion, I mentioned briefly, yes, we can do something about it. And this is the pattern that Neuro-Semantics has for it, the finishing unfinished business. So when we talk about unfinished business over here, we are not referring to websites. We are referring to the development, the psychosocial development for self, because these development processes should have gone. We should have gone through this development in our childhood. So this is where this pattern comes from. When people are not fully developed in their psychosocial dimensions, it creates unresourceful behaviors, strange behaviors. So maybe as we go in slightly deeper afterwards, we'll be able to notice those. However, just to remind you, this session is more focused on neurosemantics. So we'll be focusing more on the pattern itself, not so much on the psychosocial stages. Okay. Now, Erikson maintained that personality develops in a predetermined order through 8 stages of psychosocial development from infancy to adulthood. And during each stage, the person experiences a psychosocial crisis, which could have a positive or negative outcome for personality development. For Erikson, these crises are of a psychosocial nature because they involve the psychological needs of the individual. So that's where the word psycho comes in, the psychological needs of the individual, conflicting with the needs of society. So that's the social need. So as we develop our psychological self, fulfilling our psychological needs, we are interacting with the world matrix. Our world matrix from young are our parents, our brothers, sisters, our cousins, our family members. So that's the world matrix. That is our society. Now, according to the theory, successful completion of each stage results in a healthy personality, and we acquire basic virtues. Basic virtues are the characteristic strengths which our ego, this is our sense of self, can use to resolve subsequent crisis. Failure to successfully complete a stage, remember there are 8 stages. Failure to complete a stage can result in a reduced ability to complete further stages. So that's why it's important. That's why on Tuesday I keep mentioning the words of now I can't remember his name. Glenn Dorman. If you take care of the first 6 years, and then the second 6 years, the third and the fourth 6 years will take care of itself. Because primarily in the first 12 years of the child's life, the major portion of the psychosocial stages are being met if they are being developed healthily. So if at, let's say, the first stage, it's not completed fully, it will affect the way that the second stage is being fulfilled, and it will also affect the third stage and the fourth stage. So what happens is that the person at the age of 18 and beyond will be lacking in these, we call them these needs. They will be lacking in the virtues that are necessary for them to have a resourceful relationships with self and others in the society. Now, using this NLP and Neuro-Semantics pattern, these stages, if they have not been fully developed, can be resolved successfully. So that's why I have every confidence, and I said this, that if we were to experience certain trauma or lack of development in the area of mental, emotional, or spiritual, then the NLP and neurosemantics processes, we can make use of whatever is available to help to recapitulate whatever trauma there. The only thing is that if there is any trauma in the area of, in the physical area, that one, as Mr. Lee Sai-su says, God also cannot help you. However, when it comes to the the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect, because these are metaphysical, they are beyond our physical self, then we can use these processes. So let's take a look, a very quick look at the Erikson's developmental model of psychosocial stages. The first stage is trust, or it's as a spectrum, trust and mistrust of others, referring to the people who respond to and care for your needs. Because when we talk about trust, mistrust, when we go out into society at large, we want to be careful about where we put our trust and towards others. However, as we are growing up, our caregivers, our primary caregivers, they are giving us what we need. And a child, in order to learn trust fully and completely, needs to have that, that continuous care. So when the child has that continuous care, the child will experience trust fully. Now, it's important that the child experiences trust at 100%. So this is about stimulating that state, that sense of self, to have trust, because if you were to experience it at 100%, you know what it is. Yeah. And as I was thinking about knowing at 100%, I was smiling inwardly, because when I first started working, I was fortunate that at that particular point in time that I came back to Malaysia to start working, my brother left for overseas to do his doctorate, and he left me with his car. So when I first started working, I already had a car. He sold me at very cheap price, half of what the market rate was. So I was very happy with that. It's just that My elder brother, he drives very carefully and he drives slowly. Now that car that I had is you can almost say as a sports car. It's got the triple S badge behind it. Datsun 160J triple S. So it's a performance car. However, for about 7 years, the car has been driven gently. And the car didn't know how to go at full power. So when I got the car and I began driving it, I think it was in the first 3 or 4 months, the car was sputtering, didn't know how to go enough until I retrained the car. So I hope that gives you an analogy that when a child, during that stage of developing trust, doesn't experience trust at 100%, will not know how to trust fully and completely. Now, learning how to trust will help the person to develop hope in life. So that's why you see some people under extreme difficulties, extreme crisis in life. Some would have hope for the future, and yet some with just a little bit of setback, they lose hope for whatever that comes into their life later. So it has a bearing. So this is for children between the age of birth to 1.5 years old. So the next stage is the stage of autonomy on one end of the spectrum. The other is shame and doubt. Now, autonomy comes from being able to function fully and self-sufficient and exploring. So when the child is given the capacity, the ability to explore, to do things according to what they desire to do, then they learn to function, to be self-sufficient, and they gain this sense of self-autonomy. Otherwise, being stopped, being hindered from doing, they go into the shame and doubt spectrum. Now, this autonomy, shame and doubt spectrum will give rise to will. The person will have will to decide, knowing what they want to do and making decisions going for what it is that they want to do. Next is the third stage is initiative and guilt. So this also comes with exploring and negotiating boundaries. Children from young being given the ability to ask for, given the opportunity to ask and negotiate for what it is that they want, given the opportunity to push boundaries. So they will develop initiative rather than when they are being stopped, whenever they want something, they negotiated for something, being told that they are wrong, then they develop guilt about self. So this spectrum, initiative, guilt, will create the virtue of purpose. So they have a purpose. A child developing initiative fully, experiencing the state of initiative fully, will have a sense of purpose for whatever that they do in life. Okay. So the next stage is the stage for competency. So it is about the spectrum of industry, working hard to achieve what you want. That's industry. The other end of the scale is inferiority. So they learn to become competent, to become productive in mastering skills. So given a task, they are given the opportunity to learn, to fail in doing it, and learning and practicing. So they learn that through practice, through industry, they can get at the outcomes that they want. However, if the child is prevented from doing, from working, from exploring, from being productive, it could be in today's day and age. I notice what's happening is that both parents working out there, the children being left with the maid, and the maid wants things to be easy for her, does everything for the child, because allowing the child to learn skills takes time, takes patience. So it's easier for the maid to do for the child. And because of that, the child doesn't develop competency and doesn't value industry. So this is also something that we want to be able to be aware. One of the things that really annoys me is when I see parents, when they go to the park, you know, this Taman Tasik and all this, they'll bring their children. One thing that really annoys me is when I see children who, I look at the size of the child, I know that child can walk, maybe at least a year old. The size they can walk, and yet parents still push the child in the using push chair, depriving the child of the ability to walk, to run. It really annoys me, because that could be an opportunity for the parents to help the child develop competency in walking, in running, in climbing, the competency of using their full body. So that's at stage 4. And stage 5 is developing identity to establish a sense of self. So that's identity as opposed to role confusion. So when you give the child the ability to experiment, to do things that suits them, then they develop their self-identity. Otherwise, sometimes parents tend to make decisions for the child and imposing decisions on the child to the extent that the child is confused about his or her own identity or role. So that's at that end of the scale. So this will create the virtue, the social virtue of fidelity, meaning to say they are fully and completely one. The identity is intact, the identity is strong, wholesome. Yeah. So their identity is not conflicted, not confused. And most recently, I learned a new word. To me, it's a new word: discombobulation. Wow, I learned that from Joanna Lumley. Shane, you remember Joanna Lumley? Discombobulation. It means to be confused. And children, when parents deprive children from making decisions, and this is also important for parents, to give your children the opportunity to make decisions even when you know that the decision might be wrong. They need to experience it. Okay, so this is where fidelity will develop. Now, when the stages 1, 2, 3, 4, they develop well, going to the stage number 6, that is where they develop the stage for developing love, dealing with companionship, with love, with friendships. So this one coming from 16 and above. So they begin to develop that. So one end of the scale is intimacy, to be comfortable, to be, yeah, the word is comfortable with intimacy as opposed to isolation. So that's why you have issues of people, because they are afraid of intimacy, they go into isolation. And I wonder if you are aware of one of, you can say, major problem in Tokyo. They discovered that there are more than 1 million people, and we are not just talking teenagers, because this group has already grown and some of them are already approaching their 40s already. The Japanese, they have a term for it. They call it hikikomori. Hikikomori are people who are so withdrawn, they feel isolated from society. And because of that feeling of isolation, they also fear intimacy. They withdraw into their own room. They, not to say they will not get out of the house, they will not even get out of their own room to the extent that now the elderly parents are taking care of them because they will not leave the house. Don't talk about leaving the house, the room. Many of those hikikomoris, their parents would take the food and bring it to the door, their bedroom door, and they will take it from there. So this is how, when you have a toxic development, a traumatic lack of development can create such a situation. So they don't have this capacity to love self and to love others. Then step number 7 is generativity and stagnation. One is to generate, to create more value. The other is to stagnate, to just stay there. So this is about making a meaningful contribution. So this develops the value of care. So that is why you notice some people, they are caring towards others, towards self, others, and society. And typically, these are the people who are in coming into the 40s already. And that is why we notice that after the age of 40, many people, they tend to begin to be outward in terms of what they do. They begin wanting to care, wanting to give meaningful contribution. And specifically, I can give you the example of the Rotarians. We've got a Rotarian in this room this evening. So this is coming from that social virtue of wanting to contribute to society. And yet people who don't develop this, they just want to hoard for themselves and just be by themselves and not contribute to society. Yeah? And stage number 8 is integrity on one end and despair on the other. That's stage number 8. So this is about making sense of life. So having resourceful meaning about life, about achievement, gives the person the integrity of accomplishment in their lives. So this stimulates another social virtue, which we call wisdom, to be able to accept self, what I have achieved, what I have not achieved. At the same time, to be comfortable with who I am and what I have done in my life. So these are the 8 psychosocial stages that we learn from Erikson. So these are the developmental model that Erikson brought to us. Okay, so I'm going to pause there for any discussion, any questions that you may have with respect to just these social stages. I go in very quickly because this evening I mentioned we are going to focus more on the pattern, finishing unfinished business in the context of we as adults, if in any aspect of our development not fully, not healthily developed, yes, we can do something about that. So before we go into that, so any questions or comments, just unmute yourself, your phone, and let me hear from you. Okay, thank you, Su'al, for your comment.
I have one question.
Yes.
You were saying just now, normally people by the age of 40, they have that moving forward to contribute in whatever way they want to. But I notice certain people in the society, they don't do that, but they keep going learning and learning stuff. But they never teach what they learn, you know? So they become student all the age. So I asked them and I said, it's time now you know. No, I want to learn some more. Keep learning. Want to share what learn with people. So I was trying to fit what you were talking about, these 8 stages. Are they adult in children or children in adults?
Yeah. Thank you, Hashim. Now, for me, what it indicates is that there are certain areas of their development that is not fully healthily developed, that cause them to have this, I would say, lack of development in stage 7. Yeah. So because what happens is that now they are moving into generating. They are generativity. They are moving into learning for self, but not to bring it to others. So the issue would be, if you remember the matrix model, now they have a strong, they may have that matrix of self. However, the matrix of others is at a lower level. There is an imbalance between self and others. So that's why what they are doing, they are learning. It is as if they are generating, doing something of value, creating value for self. However, that value is not bringing out to others in their lives. So it is just an indication there is some slight imbalance over there. So it is about getting more balance in that sense. Thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else? You're good? Okay, so let's move to this pattern itself. Now, this pattern offers a process for assisting a person to catch up in their psychic development. After he or she has cleaned up all traumatic memories, limiting beliefs, and or disempowering beliefs. So when we use this pattern, we don't use it in or by itself, all alone. We want to make sure that we have taken care of traumatic memories, because traumatic memories, limiting beliefs, can also affect some of the ways that you are operating in these social virtues. So just as a reminder for that. So that's why when you learn this, especially for those of you who have attended the Meta NLP program, when you learn this pattern came towards the very end, after we have learned how to take care of our unresourceful memories, our negative emotions. One, we have learned how to take care of our unresourceful beliefs. We have the competency to take care of those. Then we look into recapitulating the lack of development in terms of the psychosocial stages. So that's something that I just want to mention there. Now, when we look at this pattern, the elicitation questions for this pattern is the question of, in which of these areas do you find yourself lacking? And as I'm asking this question, I'm going to go through the 8 values. If you can, just for yourself, individually, make a rating for yourself from 0 to 10. Yeah. 0 to 10. 0 is the spectrum over here. If it is stage 1, mistrust. The other end of the spectrum, on the first stage, is trust. Yeah. So in the spectrum of trust and mistrust, where are you operating? Yeah. And this is in the context of the primary caregivers in your life. Because when you talk about trust in the, let's say, in the context of, let's say, in business, you need to have that balance of, what do they call it? Caveat emptor, the buyer beware. So you do not want to go into business with full trust in whatever that people say. You want to check their background and all that. So trust here in the context of the primary caregivers, in the context of let's say the person who is most important or most responsible for your life, that in your life. So that is in that context, the trust towards your primary caregiver. So what is that value that you have? So if, for example, in my case, if I were to use this as a context, it would be my sense of trust towards my parents, my father and my mother, even though both of them have passed away. So I want to go into and check, what is my level of trust? What was my level of trust towards my father and towards my mother? So this is the context that you want to check. Okay, so right now I'm going to go through all 8, and I want you to make a soft note for yourself. Where about on that scale? 0 is over here, 10 is over here. So the first one is trust and mistrust. So whereabouts are you operating from? 10 for trust, 0 for mistrust, and whatever is in between. Okay, so that's for stage 1. Now, stage 2 is autonomy, shame, and doubt. This is about will. Autonomy and shame and doubt. So where are you with respect to that? Stage number 3 is purpose. So 10 is initiative. That you find yourself, that you have full and complete initiative. And when it comes to purpose, at 0 is guilt. You feel guilty in being proactive, being active, taking charge. So that's purpose. Stage 4 is competency. At 10 is industry. And at 0 is inferiority. So whereabouts are you operating from? And stage number 5 is about fidelity. At 10 is full, complete identity, clear identity for yourself. And at 0 is role confusion. So how would you rate yourself there? Stage number 6 is about love. At 10 is intimacy, feeling fully comfortable, being intimate in your relationships with the people around you. And at 0 is that sense of isolation. Okay. And stage number 7 is about I was just about to pause there because for many of you, you may be in the process of moving this. So let me just have a mention about this. Stage number 7 is about care, generativity at 10, and at 0 is stagnation. This is about making meaningful contribution. Okay. And step number 8, I'll just give a mention because most people, they develop this when they reach the age of 60. And just, I think I know there are only 2 people in this room who've reached that age. Okay, but never mind. Some people develop earlier. So at 10 is integrity, and at 0 is despair. Okay, so I hope that you've just make a soft note. So I hope you'll make a soft note for yourself whereabouts you are at. Now, the way that we run this pattern is you run this pattern for each of the stages that you identify you have a little bit of a problem with. Okay, so for example, you realize that this part of trust and mistrust is a little bit problematic for you. So you run this pattern on that particular developmental stage. Or if you find it is a competence or it is purpose. So you can take each and every one of those. So how does the pattern go? So the process is a 6-step process. The first step is to adopt a commitment to reality, because we live in a world where we have our map of reality and the territory, what's happening out there. Now, adopting a commitment to reality is about whatever that happens out there, I'm able to accept that fully and completely, meaning to say, I'm ready to let go of my expectation whenever I am faced with a reality that is different to my expectation. So this is adopting a commitment to reality rather than fighting reality. So one of the reasons why people are unable, not to say unable, they are slow to overcome setbacks in their life is denial of reality. Denial of reality. So something happens that is okay. Maybe what happens is that they went for an election. The expectation is they win, and then they lose. The reality is you lost. The expectation is I win, but I do not want to accept the fact that I lost. I want to challenge that. Okay. So commitment to reality is no matter how undesirable the reality is, I make a commitment that, okay, that's the reality, is different from what I expect. That is the truth. So map is not the territory, it's about accepting the territory to change my map rather than insisting that my map is the right one. Okay, so that's the first the first step. The second step is access the state of adult acceptance. Now, as fully functioning adults, we come to realize that the world doesn't operate in the way that we want it, because as a child we have this wild magical way of thinking that things happen sometimes by magic, and yet as we experience the world we realize that the world is different. So adult acceptance of reality is about, even when something happens that's different from what I expect, I just accept. Even if I don't like it, even if I hate it, I just accept that's what's happening. So that's the second step. I hope you can make a differentiation between step number 1 is being committed to reality. The second step is to have the adult acceptance, meaning to say, even if I like or dislike it, I'll just accept it. So that's adult acceptance of reality. The third step is to access a friendship to reality. So this is, if I were to bring up as a scale, now you are moving up. At one level, step one is about having a commitment to reality. Step two is acceptance to reality. So in terms of intensity, you are going up higher. Step three is being friendly with reality. So the state is more resourceful, is a going towards state. So accepts a friendship to reality. Now, those are the, I would consider as the background states. Those are the states that we are going to use in steps 4, 5, and 6. So we accept those, we create those states first. We are going to meta state those states into the next steps. Then step number 4 is to access the state of finishing business. So this is where you will go into finding projects that you have done and you have completed it. So to be able to access the state when you have finished a business, finished doing something, finished doing a project, to be able to access that state. How does it feel to have completed something? So that's another meta state that we are bringing into it. And step number 5 is to finish the unfinished business. So what we are going to do is to bring the states of adult acceptance, state of friendship to reality, and state of finishing the business into that psychosocial stage that we are talking about, to apply to that. And the final step, step number 6, is to use it as a switch. Okay, so those are the 6 steps. And in order to help you experience this, because even when I explain it to you just now, I'm also having difficulty in tracking it in my mind, in my head. So I would like you to experience this. Are you ready to experience this? Because as you experience it, then you'll have a sense of how this process or this pattern works. And when you have that sense, then you can apply it to any or all of the stages that we talk about. And when you have experienced this, and especially for parents here, and if you notice that your child is not fully developed in any of the states, you can also help your child with this particular pattern. So right now, I would like to invite you to experience this pattern. Yeah? And to experience this pattern so that we are on the same page, regardless if you have developed that virtue fully or not, I would like to invite you to use the first stage, the virtue of trust, because that brings us to hope. Yeah. So even when I think about it for myself, when I think about the amount of trust that I have towards my parents, I have no issues there. I trusted them fully and completely in my life as I was growing up, because they were there supporting me, caring for me fully in my life. Yeah. However, for the sake of this particular pattern, I hope that it is okay for you to just use this, whether you have developed it fully or not. That secondary. I just want you to experience the steps. Okay. So are you ready? So for this step, what I would like you to do is that you can leave your note-taking aside, because you'll get a recording of this program. Then you can meta detail it later from the recording. So for the next few minutes, I just hope that I'd like to invite you to just sit back, relax, and just follow through the instructions that I will be giving to you in a short while. Follow through in your mind and run it in your mind in the way that is personal to you. Yeah. So just inviting you again to be ready, and you can even close your eyes so that you will not be distracted by the video that you're seeing in front of you. Just sit back, relax, and just focus on your breathing, and to be just by yourself, fully and completely. Noticing how you are sitting there on the chair, noticing where you are putting your hands, your legs, focusing on your breathing, and allowing yourself to breathe in and out gently in a calm manner, relaxed. Allowing yourself to relax, just breathing and feeling each breath that you take, allowing it to make you more and more relaxed. And in this relaxed state, I'd like to invite you to just run through in your mind of what you can visualize from the words that I'm about to say to you. That's right. Now, having cleared up the hurts of the past and having used your new understandings and ego strength to face those past hurts from your strengths, you have begun to make yourself a friend to reality. That's right. Having cleared up the hurts of the past and having used your new understandings and ego strength to face those past hurts from position of strength, you have begun to make yourself a friend to reality rather than an enemy. Those days of feeling and thinking in an antagonistic way to reality have ended. As you have learned to step back from the experiences that your younger you had in the past by floating above your timeline, you now have the skill of looking at and accepting the disliked, obnoxious, dysfunction, and so on without taking it personal. What a skill. And you can congratulate yourself for learning to accept without confusing it with approving, validating, or endorsing what existed. You can accept what exists, what existed, and dislike it, and realize fully it only existed as an event, an experience, a set of behaviors, and that you exist as so much more than your experience. What a skill. This skill signifies the adult, recognition of reality as a dispassionate fact. How different from the way that we thought and felt as children. Then we took events personal. We thought in egocentric ways. We introjected the hurtful behaviors of others. And we built disempowering beliefs about ourselves. And we have now learned to do that no more. That's right. Moving on to the second step, to access a state of adult acceptance. Think about a time or situation when you accepted something that you did not like. Pick something simple to practice identifying these representations. Maybe cleaning the bathroom and toilet, or doing dishes, preparing your tax return, or whatever. You just accepted it. How do you do? Representationally. Construct this acceptance of disliked activity. Notice what you saw, what you heard as you were doing those. And notice how you felt in your body as you just accepted that. And feel that feeling of acceptance, adult acceptance. Feel that right now. What beliefs and values support this state? Just access that fully and completely. And when you have it fully and resourcefully, just anchor it, a unique anchor, as you anchor this state of adult acceptance. That's right. Taking a deep breath and letting it go. Now I'd like to invite you to move to the third step, to access a friendship to reality. Maturing, developing, and becoming fully human necessitates a commitment to what actually exists in the place of wishful thinking, magical thinking, or regretful thinking. Once you access a time when you positively felt that kind of orientation, think of a simple incident that when something happened, you are friendly to it. You accepted that with full friendship. Notice your inner representations of those movies. What you saw, heard, and felt. And what were the supporting beliefs that allows you to be friendly to reality? You're a friend to reality, aren't you? And notice how that feels. And just amplify that feeling. Feel that fully and completely. And when you are ready, just anchor that state with the representations that you have about that state. That's right. Taking a deep breath and let it go. And now I'd like to invite you to step number 4, to access the state of finishing business. This state of finishing business. I'd like to invite you to think of a project, a task, relationship that have you engaged in, that you invested yourself in, and you brought it to a completion and released so that you let it come completely and thoroughly in a positive way, so that you simply took the resources of that experience and moved to the next step. It could be about grade school, primary school that you finished, or secondary school that you finished, or a particular subject that you learned and you completed that, or a skill that you learned. How did you complete that business with your instructor, coach, or friends? I want you to notice that. Just think of one particular example of a subject or skill that you have completed. And in accessing this resourceful state of having positively brought something to closure, notice all of the representations and the supporting beliefs that made this an enhancing life experience for you. You came to terms with the time-limited nature of this subject. You began something, and then you completed it. That's right. Just go in there, see what you see, hear what you hear, and feel that fully and completely. And amplifying that feeling, anchor this now. That's right. That's right. Well done. And now I'm inviting you to step number 5, to finish the unfinished business. From where you are sitting right now, imagine that you now float above your current timeline and looking at yourself in the here and now, where you live and act and feel and think today. Looking down upon it and noticing how your current timeline moves back way into the past, and just allow yourself to notice the past timeline way back into the past, and allow yourself to notice the development task that you want completed. And for now, I'd like to invite you to look at the development task of trust. The development of trust. Just go in there. Look at your development of trust in your past timeline. And from above your timeline, moving forward into the future, to a time when you can imagine seeing yourself as having finished that task of developing trust. Now go there. Go to that point in the future where you can see yourself, imagining seeing yourself as having finished that development of trust in your life. Go there. What does finishing that task of building trust look like? What does it sound like? And what does it feel like? Just be in that feeling of 100% trust, feeling that fully and completely. And what supporting beliefs, values, and actions go along with it? I'd like to invite you to just explore those beliefs, values, and actions. And in that space, in the future, I'd like to invite you to fire the anchor of finishing business and a friend to reality. Fire the finishing business and a friend to reality anchors as you float down into that time in the future and fully experience it with completeness. And you can enjoy the full development. That's right. And now inviting you to step number 6 to use as a switch. When you have fully captured the feeling and meaning of finishing that old business of developing trust, I'd like to invite you to return to the here and now and look into your future, at that future you. And notice the steps and stages that you will take day by day as you move more and more into the future, because you can. Because you can. That's right. Taking a deep breath and let it go. That's right. So when you are ready, just come back into the here and now, onto this Zoom meeting. Well done. So a quick review of the steps. Step number 1 is to adopt a commitment to reality. Step number 2, to access a state of adult acceptance. Step number 3, access a friendship to reality state. Step number 4, access the state of finishing business. Step number 5, finish the unfinished business. And step number 6, to use as a switch. So I wonder how you went through that pattern just now. I hope that it helped you to further understand the steps. So I'm opening up for any questions or feedback or comments from any one of you. So go ahead, just unmute your mic and let me hear you.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
I think for me just now when going through the exercise, the step number 3 actually hits me very well. Being friendly with the reality. So all this while the denial, state of denial actually is a hard nail.
Okay.
So I think that the word is very soft word rather than it is more to me is more appealing. It make friend with the reality. So not to say thou shall on any, because that's a very big word.
Yeah.
So that switch is very, I mean, it's very meaningful to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Whenever I mention about this term, friends with reality, the first picture that comes to mind is my little grasshopper. She's very friendly to reality, to the extent that in that instant, things like I would, and I was stunned initially because I did not notice the process. But things like I would say to her, Grasshopper, why don't tomorrow we go for, on Sunday we go photographing? And she says, okay. So on Sunday morning, she'll be waiting for me to pick her up and go for photographing. And there were times that I pick her up. I said, I'm sorry, we can't go photographing today. Shall we take a walk in the forest? And she'll just go, okay. And I look at her as if not being able to do what she intended to do doesn't affect her so much. And I was figuring out, how does she do that? And this is the key, the process that she had. Being friendly with reality. Whatever reality turns up for her, okay, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Anyone else? What was your experience there?
Hi, Mazuki.
Yes, Sarah.
Sorry, I was late. I guess I missed the front part. But I think for me, actually, I'm a bit confused, not sure what to visualize during the steps. So it's like when you say certain things, because just now you start with all the 8 areas, all those stuff, trust and love and such.
Okay.
After that, we go to this stage. So when you say start with the stage, I don't know what to think actually.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I was confused. Should I be thinking of pick one of the 8 category for this process or not? So I'm a bit lost lah. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that confusion. What I mentioned to everyone just now was, regardless whether your development in that particular state was full or not, I said, let's pick the first one, which is trust. Let's work on that one. So that was what I mentioned. So this pattern, what you do is that you can use it for any of the 8. Well, not any of the 8. I look at your ages over here. So let's take the 7 because the 8th one, wisdom, that goes beyond 50. So I think only 2 people in this room qualify for that one. So we have to work on that. However, for the rest of you, let's say you find that, okay, for me, I find that I am not so in the area of, let's say, purpose. I don't find that I'm having strong purpose when I want to do something. I find that my initiative is not that strong, and that is also one of the things that preventing me from being more of who I want to be. So if you do find that, then use this pattern on that particular developmental process. So, or just for the fun of it, run this process for each of all of those developmental stages.
So when you mention committed to reality, what should I be thinking actually? Let's say just now you mentioned pick purpose, right? For example. So when you go to the stage 1, committed to reality, so what should I be thinking of?
So the first I would say the first 4 steps. The first 4 steps are preparation steps.
Okay.
The first one is a decision, making a decision that I will commit to reality rather than to my map. That's a decision. So this is to not have map territory distinction, to not be confused between map and territory. Whenever my map is not the same as territory, I'm deciding now that I'm committed to the territory. I'm committed to reality. So the first step is a decision step.
So I do not need to put a scenario. Just now you mentioned a reality like election and such. So we don't need to do that.
No need to do that.
I'm here. And...
Yeah. So the first step is just to commit that I'm committed to reality. In the event that there is a mismatch between my expectation and reality, I will commit to accepting what reality is. So that's the first one.
For me, there will be no visual in that statement. It's more like a logical set. Okay, it's a declaration that I'm going to commit to reality.
Yeah. So just notice your neurological responses when you say to yourself, I'm committed to reality. Just notice how it feels in your body, right? Then step number 2, 3, and 4 are state accessing and anchoring. So to access the state of acceptance, access the state of being friendly to reality, and to access the state of finishing unfinished business. So once you have accessed the state and anchored the states, what you do is that when we move to step number 5, you begin to release anchors of those states. So step number 5 is to bring to your mind the psychosocial development that you want to bring up to date, and then to release the anchor of finishing unfinished business, and then to release the anchor of a friend to reality. And step number 6 is basically future pacing. So because you have moved into the future, seeing yourself finishing the business of psychosocial development, and then when you come back into the present, to train your mind about what are the steps that you will be doing in the future that will help you to finish that business of developing that stage. So that's basically step number 6. That's the switch.
Okay, thank you.
Make sense? Yeah. So Sarah, I'm inviting you to run that pattern on each of the stages before you go to bed tonight, okay?
Oh, cannot sleep. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone else? Daniel, yeah, you were asking the question on Tuesday. So how does this pattern, is it useful to you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely useful to me. Yeah, I probably will run through, like you say, maybe not the 8, the full 7 of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm noticing. Most of you, except for the 2 of us, most of you are too young for step number 8. Shame. Yeah. Okay, so that basically wraps up this pattern. So meaning to say, this is a pattern that can help us to fully bring up to speed in the event of a trauma that happens in our life. And this trauma is a mental and emotional trauma that prevented us from completing that particular development. So running this program, what we are doing is we are programming ourselves to complete that development, bringing into our life the frames, the values, the beliefs that will support us in in fully experiencing the full development of that particular virtue, social virtue. Okay, so that's basically what we have for this evening. So before we end, I would just like to invite each and every one of you, if you have anything to say before we end this evening. So I'll begin from my very top line there. I'll begin with Franska. Anything that you like to say?
I also need to repeat, like Sarah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And Guat Ching?
I think the keywords that I learned today is because you can, and also have sense of hope.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. That's significant. Thank you, Guat Ching. Dr. Anwar? You're still muted.
Actually, I didn't follow up in the manual. I will check again in the manual and see what's in there.
Okay.
I never looked at it. This part of it. Thank you.
Hashim?
For me, going through the steps from start until.
I'm sorry, we lost your audio. Oh, yeah. We lost your audio, Hashim.
I think the transmission is a bit unstable. For me, the going through the step is very. I found it very meaningful, and I've been actually searching for how to actually dive deep into what I want to improve, what I experienced since childhood. So I think reading so many books, but this exercise helps to see from the outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And Azila, may I invite you for your comments before we end?
The comment, still digesting as I missed the session last Tuesday. So I'll definitely will revisit the recording.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimi, any comments from you?
To me, the dynamics of this intervention really required people to have full concentration during the process. Somehow, for myself, during that intervention, I seems to be ahead of what you are being asking. Meaning to say, since I have been gone through with all the body of knowledge regarding to many of the pattern, it seems to me that I able to have a peaceful environment with the reality. Meaning to say, in a way kita sebut sebagai redha lah. Then it seems to me like this is a refreshing to me. And then at the same time, it trigger me in many ways. Meaning to say, sometimes people are very much in express mode. They can achieve something during this intervention ahead of the question. Some of them are very much into visualization. They're stuck in the visualization, what they need to ask and things like that. And to me, it seems to be like I've been through a lot with experiences and things like that. And it's quite refreshing to me for you to give us this kind of intervention tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Suong?
It's an interesting technique. I kind of tried it, but also because it's not full concentration, I think it's better to retry it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be giving the link to the recording. Then you can go through it again. I hope that it will bring benefit for you as well. And Sarah, anything that you want to say before we end?
Thank you, Marzuki, for the session, as always. And thank you for keeping up the sharing tirelessly. And Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you. And Danielle?
Yes, Thank you so much, Mazuki, for tonight's session. I've learned a lot, and I feel good to actually revisit all these steps again. I think I have been left it untouched for more than 2 years now. So it kind of brings back my memory going through all that last time.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we end, a couple of announcements about our next program. First announcement is that we've been having these sessions, the Neuro-Semantics session, first Thursday of the month, the meta coaching session, we have it on the third Thursday of the month. And then in December, I introduced the sessions on parenting on Friday, to the extent that I got confused myself. Remember, Confucius says, don't be confused. So to not confuse myself and you, I decided to bring the sessions to Thursday. In that way, then I remember, Thursday is the day that we have. So still maintaining a neuro-semantic session, which is focused on the patterns and the processes involved in neurosemantics. That will still be on the first Thursday of the month. And the third Thursday of the month still focus on meta coaching, is on coaching. So the topic on the third Thursday of the month is still meta coaching. So what we'll do is that on the second and the fourth Thursday of the month, that's when I'll bring additional topics. So it will be more general. For example, last month, we were talking about parenting. So for this month, I'm going to focus on communicating and relating. It is a little bit more general on communication and relationship. So those are the topics that we'll be covering on the second and the fourth Thursday of the month. So in that way, we'll have our sessions every Thursday. I hope it makes it easier for you to remember. It's just that the first Thursday is focused on neurosemantics. The third Thursday focus on meta coaching. The second and fourth Thursday will be on more general topics relating to our personal life, relating to our work. However, focus in the area of communication and relationships from the neurosemantics perspective. So I hope that in that way, I don't confuse myself anymore. Otherwise, Franska came into the room at 8:10. I was wondering why Franska come in so early. Then I realized, oh, it should start at 8. Okay, so it will be at 8 o'clock on first, second, third, and fourth Thursdays every month. Okay, so the next Thursday, Thursday 14th of January, it's all about relationship. So we are going to cover a topic called empowering mindsets for effective communicating and relating. So we'll be revisiting, for those of you who attended Coaching Essentials or Meta NLP, we'll be revisiting the hidden theories behind NLP. These are the presuppositions. These are the mindsets that allows us to be more resourceful. And on the third Thursday of the month, on the 21st of January, we are covering on the topic of the attitude and spirit for questioning excellence. So this is coaching conversation, the attitudes and spirits that will be resourceful for coaching. So those are the two topics that we'll be having in the next 2 Thursdays for this month. So with that, everyone, I really appreciate your being here. I'm honored and feel so blessed to have you. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. So with that, good night and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.